G'day and welcome to Marcus Sam After Work. Today I've got a little range of cartridges in here to go through and do a little bit of explaining about, I suppose ultimately it's talking about modern cartridges and some of the things that are mentioned about them. And that's about being more efficient and most accurate and best ever and all that sort of stuff. And I suppose most people who know the channel would know that I sort of have some bones to pick about that. But listen, not to say they're great in their own way, but I want to go through and explain a little bit and make sense of things. And I suppose I've got a little range of some of the cartridges we have here and we've messed with as just a little bit of an example or to sort of point out a few of the, I suppose, facts about the whole process. To start off with, cartridges as we understand them, rounds as we understand them, or basically getting a bullet and its fuel into a rifle and then out of the rifle in the way of making it go bang. About 150 years ago, that neck of the woods, we went from putting muzzle loading to putting a cartridge in, which started off as a paper cartridge that turned into a brass cartridge. And then we've been on that ride, and there's polymer cartridges and things that are showing up in the now. 150 years later, but for a long time there, that's what they've been. Well, for a fairly long time. Not much in the big picture of our planet, but in our little picture, 150 years is a fair bit of time, and that's about how long we've been doing brass cartridges. It started in things that looked a bit like this down here. This is the 4570. That's a funny bullet in it, but it's a 45-120. That's a 505 Gibbs. And let's not go through and put a full description so you can actually see as I talk what all these cartridges are. But this is old stuff in safari stuff and old stuff from buffalo rounds to what we did to start off with in that first conversion from muzzle loading to cartridges. So that's what we did there. Next little gang we got in the middle here is what that largely looked like through the next 100 years. Largely they look like these sort of cases, which were then, there's a little bit of taper to them, there's a decent shoulder, they've gone to a bottleneck, so we've gone to performance cartridges in the bottleneck side of things, but they are quite notably not quite the same shape as this gang over here, which move into fatter cases. There's a few of that side of things, but sharper shoulders and tighter shoulder angles with tighter radiuses going from your case walls to the shoulder and then back out to your neck. And there's some other things that all look fairly similar amongst that gang. Once again, I'll go through the description of what they are. I'll come back to a minute. And then here we just have a couple of the moderately new ones, from the 6.5 Creedmoor to the 300 PRC. And there's a whole gang in the PRCs and then the 6.8 Westerns and the Valkyries and all sorts of cases, which this two here, our gang, along with all the other gang, are very much spoken of by a lot of people as the most efficient and the best it's been. And because it's designed later, it's going to be better and better performance and all the rest of it. And that isn't actually the complete story. Not to say there's not some great things to come with the new cartridges, but let's go through this a little bit. In the middle range here, which I've listed what they are, but you've got your 3006, you've got your 308, you've got your 223, you've got your 243. There's a lot more could go into that little pile, but the notable feature about those is they've all got a similar shoulder angle. They all tend to be a little bit of a tapered case. And whether it's a Belter Magnum or whatever it is, they're all in a similar sort of shape you'll see at the top of them. Now what's actually going on there, those cases there were designed, some of them with military applications, some of them with just general use applications, but they were designed about ease of manufacture, about the performance that generally back then we were using more a lighter weight bullet for hunting and that sort of thing, so it tend to be a less efficient projectile, but really designed about feeding as best they could and manufacturing nice and easily, so everything went together well. They fed, basically that's the big job they had to do, was not only feed into your magazine or out of your magazine, out of your internal magazine to rack and the bolt, or some of these are also designed with the capabilities of semi-automatic and fully automatic fire. So the actual feeding into the chamber was super, super important. But also the extracting, so how they came out, how they went in even with a bit of grut and grime in there, that sort of stuff, designed to be able to deal with almost everything can function properly. So that was much more. You have as you can imagine, as your shoulder as you tighten that shoulder up and get it from 0 degrees to 5 degrees to 10 degrees to 15 to 20 to 25 to 30, and it comes around to 90, the tighter you get it, the less likely it is to want to go somewhere. If you make it a taper, if you make it shaped like a wedge, then it's going to push itself in, even if there's a restriction there. If you sharpen that shoulder up, it's more likely to jam. It's more likely to have issues coming out of the magazine going to the chamber. So that's very much what this set of rounds, or this set of cartridges in the middle of that 150 years was designed around. Some of these ones over here were designed earlier as well, but all of these are much more designed around performance. So actually, the amount of bang you get for the amount of powder you put in there, and the amount of powder you can squeeze into a shorter space, so it can do all the bits and pieces of fitting inside an action and try and perform as well as it can. So the features go with that is you take your slight taper of your walls out and you stand it out straighter, you can get more powder in the same amount of space. You sharpen this shoulder here, you bring it around and make it sharper. To a degree, the sharper you get, the more efficiently, basically what does that is generally you raise your shoulders up to get to the neck at the same point, so you get more powder in there. There is a degree of efficiency out of sharpening those shoulders in the way of the way the bang actually happens and provides the amount of gas, but it's really more about the amount of powder you squeeze in there. And then there is a degree of throat wear on the barrel and that sort of stuff with how the angle of that works against the neck is actually makes some more efficiencies attached to it. So performance and efficiency tends to be in the wildcat world, but it goes over into this sort of range. To an extreme of your short fats, they tend to be more efficient. They tend to use their powder more efficiently, so you get more speed for the amount of powder. It doesn't make them better than something that has a fair bit more powder, because that gets more speed again, but the efficiency, the percentage of powder versus bang. And then extremes of, this is my Gibbs in there with the very sharp, like 45-degree shoulder, very sharp radiuses. There's a degree of that working for the sharper you go with the radiuses on your intersection between your case wall and your shoulder. That can help with brass flow. So you don't get as much brass growth between firings, which is something much more about the reloader, not about efficiency of racking the bolt and getting the round out, but about the efficiencies of it making go bang. So to some degree or another, these two cases, the ones in the middle here, designed more about the working man's gun, the military man's gun, being efficient, being able to deal with the getting in, getting out sort of stuff, with not too much of a detraction to the performance, but not going for the optimum. And more of this sort of stuff is going for the optimum performance. Now, generally, some of this stuff was designed a while ago. I'm not going to go through the dates. Generally, this stuff was designed later as to getting more and more down the performance side of things. And the modern stuff, for a lot of people would think with your new stuff, the likes of the PRCs, the likes of the Creedmoor, the likes of all the new stuff, it's actually designed with a couple of things in mind and to keep your sort of head onto. Is that it's designed to try and get, it's a happy compromise between the two of them. And that's what we're actually talking about. It's designed largely around a longer bullet. So there is some real advantage. And I would say straight up, if you are an off-the-shelf guy, if what you want to do is buy a firearm off the shelf and buy ammo off the shelf, then almost always the new stuff is going to be more suited to you. Not always. Some of the old stuff, the 243 and the 308s and the listen, I won't go into it. There's some old stuff, what is it? I hear it about a lot. The 2506, some old stuff that's super popular and works very well and may suit you. But largely the new stuff, there's two things they're trying to do. They're trying to sell you stuff. So they're trying to, as a manufacturer, as a corporation, you want to design something to sell. That's what business is about. They're not just doing a sales job, they're also designing something that works well. So you can buy the firearm off the shelf, you can buy the ammo off the shelf, it's going to perform well. As for outright performance benefits, the case is not designed, and that's really the crux of this video. None of the new ones are designed about outright performance. They might be sold like they've got more outright performance, but they're not designed about that at all. They're designed largely on a 30-degree shoulder. Now, the 30-degree shoulder is not designed for the most performance. You can go a little tighter, you'll get more performance. You'll get more efficiency out of the case and more performance out of the case if it's just about amount of bang for amount of go, for amount of power at the end of the muzzle. What they're designed about is a good compromise between where it gets good performance, but is also ease of manufacture. That same angle I'm talking about the shoulders, when you go past 30 degrees and you come into your 40 degrees, as much as there's some little gains out of performance, there's some negatives in feeding the magazine, but there's also big negatives in manufacturing. What will tend to happen in both in size in the case when the mandrel's going through the neck, but also even in loading, that bullet can actually, those shoulders can actually crimp in. Once that's happened, that bit of brass is binned. So for the most efficiency of manufacture, the 30 degree works there, while still being good for performance as well, but not the optimum performance. So like I said, I'll come back to, in the way of off the shelf, there's some great stuff, and there's some really good things to go down the new firearm and get it off the shelf, depending on what you can get and all the rest of it in the way of the ammo and supply and all those things. But outright performance, yeah, listen, it doesn't perform much better than the stuff that was designed in some cases 100 years ago. Performance-wise, it really comes down to the effort you put in. And yes, off-the-shelf ammo, then it probably is going to perform better because the off-the-shelf ammo is not set up. Once you go into hand loading, that can swing back around to where there's really no race involved. And in outright performance compared to a Wildcat, generally a Wildcat has been pushed to try and get more performance. That's generally not going to be worried about how well it feeds in the magazine. They want to run their own stuff, so it's their own round with the best projectile, with the best setup, with the best load, and then a little sharper on the shoulders, a little sharper angle and sharper radiuses. You end up with a little more performance out of it. So ultimately, that's really the video to say that, listen, not to slag on the new rounds at all. There is some real advantages to it. But to think they are designed to outright perform, they're going to punch above their weight in all levels because it's designed in 2020 or 2010 or 2022 or whenever it was, so it's going to be much better than all the rest of it. No, there might be salesmen that tell you that, but that's not the case. They are designed to perform well, and they are designed to where you can buy stuff off the shelf for them. So there can be real advantages. Generally, I'd say with the new ones, give it a couple of years if you want to keep this thing. If you want to buy it right now and you get ammo right now and this season's all you want, then yeah, for sure. If you want to make sure this lives, then I would tend to hedge back. Let the other guy buy it right now, see how it goes, but see if it stays on the shelf. Because the people actually want it, as to whether they've hit the niche with that side of things, as to where it actually works, as to whether other manufacturers pick it up. That's more about the new stuff than anything else, if it's picked up or not, because that's its advantage. In performance side of things, the truth of it is you can come right back to where we started, and there still are things that it can do so well, and the differences are only small between there and there when it actually comes down to it. Yes, there's a little bit of wind, yes, there's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but they still are an amazing thing as to how well they perform, even something that's 150 years old. Anyway, guys, that's the video for today. I hope that made some sense. I would stress there is lots of good things for the new ones. I just don't really like hearing how they're going to outperform everything and punch well above their weight. They ain't, but doesn't mean they're a bad thing. Anyway, guys, thanks for checking in. We'll catch you next time.